Welcome. We are so glad to be with you to share our thoughts and reflections about the second trust, respect all life. For us, one of the most important aspects of our shared life has been the journey in which we realized that widening our circles of compassion was central to create the highest level of caring and compassion each and every day. Our journey as ethical vegans is to embody and awaken in others the awareness that we must hold a deep respect for all life.
Throughout the years, as classical pianists, we've become aware of the power of music to move others. Musical arts are vital in creating a space and experience in which listeners are drawn directly into their emotions and what resides inside all of us. The strength of music is that it's a language beyond words. It's filled with life and energy. Gabriel Fauré, who composed our opening piece, said the following, quote, "For me, art, and especially music, exists to elevate us as far as possible above everyday existence."
All animals, human and non-human, we are equals. We humans are not superior to anything or anyone. We animals all have families. We seek companionship, love one another. We play, solve problems. We feel joy, fear, sadness, and we mourn. That non-human animals look different from us is not sufficient reason or justification to deny them ethical consideration. In fact, many possess capabilities greater than our own. Think of dogs and pigs with their amazing sense of smell, cheetahs that can run 65 miles an hour, animals that use the Earth's magnetic field to navigate around the world, or the many animals able to sense an earthquake's seismic waves way in advance of its arrival. Yet beyond physical traits and abilities, it is our survival instincts that most deeply connect us and define the core of our identity. All animals have an interest in living. We are all conscious with life energy, and we are all aware. Notably, studies have contributed to a growing awareness of animals' sentience and emotional lives. Though as an ethical vegan, a part of me is surprised that this is such a relatively recent development. Certainly, anyone with a companion animal can attest to their unique personalities and how we treasure every moment of interaction with them. Some of you may have heard about the 2012 Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness, put forth by a group of more than 400 prominent scientists, stating that animals are conscious and aware to the degree that humans are. And there's the work of Stephen Wise, founder and president of the Non-Human Rights Project, and noted biopsychologist Lori Marino, who states that, quote, "Person doesn't mean human. Human is the biological term that describes us as a species. Person, though, is about the kind of beings we are, sentient and conscious. That applies to most animals too. They are persons or should be legally," unquote. Part of our advocacy efforts on behalf of non-human animals should be centered on fostering awareness of who they are as individuals. Through a psychological coping process called psychic numbing, humans typically distance themselves, even if subconsciously, from instances of loss occurring on a massive scale, which would be emotionally overwhelming if we were to empathize with every single individual. So it's easy for society to remain numbed from the reality of what's happening. In The 10 Trusts by Jane Goodall and Mark Bekoff, Jane Goodall describes the power of how seeing an animal as an individual changes human perception in a story about Phoenix, a calf found beside her slaughtered mother after a herd was killed off due to an outbreak of foot and mouth disease in the UK. Quote, "There was Phoenix, a white calf, who was found still alive beside her dead mother 5 days after the herd had been slaughtered. Phoenix was headline news for days, and the Minister of Agriculture, responsible for the killing, was besieged with letters begging, demanding that Phoenix be spared. Even Prime Minister Tony Blair added his voice to the popular demand. Animals are, indeed, individuals just like us, each with his or her own life filled, as ours, with happiness and sadness, fear and despair." Thank you, Jane Goodall, for that poignant story. Indeed, it's so true that advocating for our fellow animals is about celebrating the diversity and unique beauty of each and every species.
Respect, as eloquently stated by Jane Goodall in The 10 Trusts, is about recognizing, quote, the value of every animal, plant, and tree in the complex web of life. Each living creature is worthy of our respect. Every living being has its own spark of life, unquote. Prior to the rise of animal agriculture about 10 to 12,000 years ago, early humans existed as foragers, gathering, hunting, and scavenging for food. Humans coexisted with animals in a complex web of life, highly observant of their unique abilities and behaviors, and fascinated by the powers they seem to hold. But the development of our modern culture led to a critical change in our perceptions of these animals, bringing us further away from any form of respect. We began seeing them as units of production within industries whose sole goals are efficiency and profit. It's astounding to realize about 107 billion humans have ever lived on Earth. Yet every single year, we kill at least 60 billion land animals and 3 trillion sea animals, mostly for food, but also through the entertainment, research, and clothing industries. And most of society enables this without batting an eye. It is a great crime of humanity, an amount of suffering, violence, and death so enormous that it defies comprehension, constituting the most atrocious and heartless acts ever inflicted upon a group of living beings. And it is committed with indifference on a massive scale every second of the day. So for us as a culture, it's going to take a collective evolution away from the desensitizing that has been so heavily ingrained in society. We must open our eyes to the simplest of truths, that it pains us to see another being suffer. It's about daring to be aware. We cannot look away.
When we look at the discord and conflict in our world, the root cause comes down to a very basic question. Do we see ourselves in all others? It's about the nature of how we either connect or disconnect from other beings. I use the words compassionate oneness to describe the sense of how we are all unified by a life force, as mysterious as it may be, beyond our ability to comprehend or quantify it. Sadly, humankind has adopted the assumption that certain species of our fellow beings are beneath us, here for our own needs and purposes. But we can do one simple thing to experience compassionate oneness. Gaze into any animal's eyes and witness the same energy of life that we also hold so preciously within ourselves. With our kindred animals, we share all the behaviors and intentions that define what it means to be sentient. We desire to live free from pain, to have adequate nourishment and shelter, communicate and socialize in unique ways, protect our young, and if necessary, we will fight for our lives. Oneness means that we move beyond the separateness of perceptions that cause many to love one animal, yet harm and consume another. Writer and activist Jim Mason describes this as the self-anesthetization of our awareness, and I believe the harm inflicted upon these innocent beings on such a vast scale is perhaps the greatest cognitive dissonance of our time. What is called for is a courageous compassion that moves us away from the negative aspects of human nature that have so easily brought such great harm to others and the natural world. The last selection we will perform speaks to the inspiring power of the arts. Written in 1854, Orpheus, by the great Romantic composer Franz Liszt, had as its source of inspiration an Etruscan vase the composer saw in the Louvre. It was said that the mythical musician's powers were such that he charmed not only animals, but rocks and trees. Liszt wrote the following: "The first poet-musician, clad in a starry robe, his open lips exhaling divine melodies and words, his fingers plucking the strings of his lyre. Stones were softened and hearts harder than stone were bathed in burning tears, revealing to humanity the benevolent power of art, its glorious illumination, its civilizing harmony. Humanity preserves in its bosom those instincts of ferocity, brutality, and sensuality, which it is the mission of art to soften, to calm. Today, as ever, Orpheus, that is to say, art itself, must spread its flow of melody, the subtle vibration of its harmony, like a beneficent light upon the conflicting elements which claw at each other and bleed within the soul of every individual." In florid 19th century language, Liszt concludes, "If it had been given to us completely to embody our thought in tone, we would have wished to portray the serenely civilizing character of the song radiated by every work of art, its energy, its august power, its caress as gentle as the breezes of Elysium, its gradual ascent like a cloud of incense, a diaphanous azure ether, enveloping the entire universe in a transparent garment of ineffable and mysterious harmony."
To those of you watching and listening, thank you for opening your hearts to the possibilities of creating a life of compassion for all as we move from a society of violence against countless others to one of empathy, inclusivity, and kindness.
And we'd like to express our thanks to Ellie Sarti and the Compassion Arts Festival for inviting us to participate this year, and Jane Goodall and Mark Beckoff. We are honored to be a part of the rising community of artists that are giving voice to the voiceless and advocating for the transformational change that is so critically needed at this time. As artist Sherry Rabinowitz said in 1984, quote, "Artists need to create on the same scale that society has the capacity to destroy," unquote. Our greatest work of art is the purpose we find in each of our lives to create a kinder and more compassionate world. Thank you.